Hello, this is RV Vagabond Jerry, and I made it back safely to Texas from my trip to Egypt. And I'm sitting here at a Cracker Barrel restaurant with my motorhome behind me, and you can see my motor scooter on the back there. And I thought I would do this video to give you a summary of my experience visiting Egypt and on the Nile cruise. So first, let me tell you, it was a 17-day trip, which included 9 days sailing down the Nile, 4 days in land tours before and after the cruise in Aswan and Cairo, and then 4 days of traveling. This is my 14th cruise that I've done in my whole life. So yes, I love cruising, but what I don't like is the traveling part. Flying to the point where we pick up the ship, especially if it crosses the Atlantic, is dreadful to me. Crossing all those time zones and losing sleep on the plane, it takes me a day or two to really get back to normal. So that part I really hate the most. And also, of my 14 cruises, this is the first one I've done on a riverboat. Well, one that's at least more than a few hours. And one thing I really liked about the riverboat is that the whole time you're sailing, you have scenery to look at, to the right and to the left on the shore. When you go on ocean cruises, on your traveling days, you look out, you see nothing but ocean. And I do want to give you a little bit of a review of the riverboat. However, I can't really give you an honest evaluation of riverboats because this is the first riverboat cruise that I've done. All my others have been ocean cruise ships, big ones, anywhere from 2,000 to 6,000 people capacity. Riverboats only have capacities of, some are less than 100, and I think some of them are maybe as much as 300 people, whereas cruise ships are thousands. So the riverboats have to be designed very, very much differently than ocean cruise ships. But one thing I really wish that riverboat had, that I think they could reasonably have, is an elevator. 5 stories. And quite often I had to go from the bottom story up to the top, climbing those 4 stories, sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a day. After having climbed all day long, seeing the sights of all these temples and things in Egypt, that kind of got tiring. So this riverboat had a capacity of 104 people. It was really kind of a shock to find out that of 104 capacity, there were really only 35 people sailing that week. And then we were told that there were 65 crew people. To have about twice as many crew people as passengers was very unusual, and I think it really caused the employees on the boat to give a little too much attention to us. And I'm not one that requires a lot of attention especially from cruise ship employees. So sometimes all that attention got a little annoying. Now let me tell you about the food on the cruise. Lunches and dinners, excellent. I had no complaints about the lunches or dinners. The breakfast, especially for me, I thought was dreadful, because they forced us into Muslim breakfast. And what that means is no ham, no bacon, no pork sausage. And to me, without some of those pork products for breakfast, it's really not much of a breakfast. And actually, I prefer turkey bacon to pork bacon. So they could easily have served us turkey bacon and not broken any of their rules. And getting ice with my drinks was a bit of a challenge. They didn't give you ice unless you asked for it. And for those 13 days of being on the boat, I must have asked for ice 40, 50 times. Sometimes I would have to ask 3 times to get a full glass of ice. They'd fill it halfway. Can I have more? 3/4 way. Can I have more? Finally, you get a full glass of ice. And every afternoon, they would serve hot tea. That was just their tradition. Even if it's 100 degrees outside, they're still serving hot tea. And when I asked for iced tea, they acted like they had never heard of such a thing. So a few times I made my own iced tea. It was a bit of a challenge, but I did it. Now, I really enjoyed my trip to Egypt. I really enjoyed the cruise. I really enjoyed seeing all the sights in Egypt. I'm certainly glad I did the trip. However, there are 3 negative things I have to say about Egypt. And driving through town, you can look around at the buildings and the traffic and everything, and you can see a lot of weird things going on, at least that I'm not used to in the States. But that's their business, not mine. It didn't affect me. So these 3 things I'm going to mention are things that really personally affected me. And number 1 is that the Egyptians are obsessed with regulating tourists being able to take pictures and video. I take 2 full days to fly to Egypt and spend many thousands of dollars, and when I get there I'm told, no photos please. What the heck is that about? Telling tourists no photos when they're coming that far away, spending that much? I was really kind of stunned at that. Now, that no photos policy was only at a few places, and typically I remember sometimes it would be in tombs, and these tombs where they said no photos please, or forget the please, no photo policy, you go inside and you look around and there's really nothing there. It's just rock wall, and there's not like paintings on the wall that's going to fade or anything like that with a flash, which I would never use anyway. We're looking at rock. Why have this policy? You can't take pictures of our rock. I don't get that at all. Now, at the large majority of the sites we went to, they did let you take photos and video, but that policy varied a lot. And then it would typically cost about $10 US or so as admission to go to see these archaeological sites. And in some places that's all it costs, but in some places, in addition to buying the admission ticket, you also have to buy another ticket that gives you rights to take photos or video. And to take photos, some places it was a $3 extra cost, some places it was $18. 50 Egyptian pounds or 300 Egyptian pounds, that translates to $3 or $18. Some places it was 50 pounds for a photo permit, 300 pounds for a video permit. Some places it was 300 pounds for either one. So they're charging about twice as much for a photo permit as the admission ticket cost. And even after buying the video ticket, then as I'm touring the place, there were several times when they asked me to show them my ticket that I had paid for a photo permit or video permit. It wasn't so much the cost. I mean, I'm spending thousands of dollars anyway, but it was just a real annoyance that I found with all this photo video restriction. And number 2, at all of these archaeological sites, there are a lot of men standing around watching you and doing various things. Some of them would be guarding the restrooms. And none of them were in uniforms. None of them had badges or name tags. No way of knowing if these are men who are paid by the government to perform this service, or if it's just random guys that are hanging around trying to get money out of people. And they all expect tips. Tips for doing things you don't want them to do. Now, I don't mind tipping for someone if they're doing something that I ask for, but when you're forcing me to do or not do something, I don't want to give you a tip for that. So that was really a bit of an annoyance. And I think some of these guys, especially the restroom guys, were just some Egyptian guy who shows up and just tries to scam money from tourists. And about the bathrooms, they would not have any paper in the bathroom stalls. They would have a guy standing at the entrance to the bathroom, and he would sell you. You give him $1 or so many pounds, and he would give you like 6 squares of toilet paper. And I'm still not convinced those guys were legitimate. I think they may have just been scammers, I don't know. And number 3, everywhere I went in Egypt, the whole traveling that I did in Egypt, there is trash all over, alongside the roads and the sidewalks and the bayous. They have all these bayous or canals where water is diverted from the Nile off onto through the cities, and they are just lined with garbage. They just throw their garbage just anywhere and nobody picks it up. It was really an eyesore. I hated to see that. It really ruined what would be a much more beautiful country if they didn't throw their garbage just anywhere outside. And if you ever saw a trash can, it was full. That sort of kind of ruined the trip to some degree, I think. Now you're probably all wondering, how much did this trip cost me? Believe it or not, it was about $7,500. Now let me tell you why, 2 reasons why it was so much. Number 1, river cruises will always cost more than ocean cruises, because you take the entire cost of operating a cruise and divide it by 1,000 people or 2,000 people or 3,000 people, it's going to be a whole lot more cost per person than on the river boats where you take the entire cost of operating a cruise divided by 100, 200, 300 people. And I had a room by myself. I actually had a roommate who was planning to go and signed up for it, and then a couple months before backed out on me, and I didn't want to cancel the trip. So I had to pay about 50% more for the cruise costs than everyone else paid. Well, that's my summary. Even with some complaints, like I said, I really enjoyed the trip. I'm glad I did it. I'm not going to go back. I typically don't even go back to anywhere where I've already been before. I got a lot of other places I want to go, and you follow me on my channel and you will find out where those places are. So if you're ever thinking about going to Egypt, I hope this video has helped you. Good day, folks.